I went looking for my ex-boyfriend, Daniel Hayes, intending to ask for a second chance, just 1 week after our breakup. I pushed open his apartment door and froze. He was leaning down, tenderly kissing a girl. A girl wearing my silk pajamas. And this girl wasn't just anyone. She was Jessica Thorne, my university roommate for the past 4 years. Just last night in our dorm room, Jessica had casually mentioned she might be moving out soon. She said the guy she'd been chasing for ages had finally confessed his feelings and asked her to move in with him. At the time, I'd naively congratulated her, happy she'd finally gotten her wish. It never crossed my mind that her long-sought-after boyfriend was my freshly minted ex. He certainly didn't waste any time. Seamless. I stood frozen in the doorway, the air thick with awkwardness. Jessica shrieked when she saw me. "Serena?" Daniel looked up then, his eyes meeting mine. There was a flicker of surprise, maybe even guilt, in his gaze, but it was quickly masked by a chilling indifference, a cool composure I hadn't seen directed at me before. He straightened his shirt, then calmly walked towards me, looking down his nose slightly. "What are you doing here?" My gaze snagged on the angry red mark blooming on his collarbone, a stark contrast to his pale skin. A heavy weight settled in my chest, making it hard to breathe. The carefully rehearsed words asking for reconciliation died on my lips unspoken. Jessica trailed after him, offering a small, apologetic smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, I didn't bring pajamas, so I just borrowed yours. Sorry about that." A dull buzzing started in my ears, loud and insistent. Seeing my silence, she continued, her voice overly bright. "Serena, don't misunderstand. Daniel and I only got together after you two broke up." Watching her scramble to proclaim her innocence made me feel like a pathetic clown. It took me a moment to find my voice, to dredge up a stiff, unbelievable excuse for Daniel's question. "I still have some things here. Came to pack them up." Daniel was silent for a beat, his expression unreadable. "Come in then." Stepping inside, I understood his brief silence. The succulent I'd carefully potted and placed on the sunny windowsill was gone. The matching couples mugs and toothbrushes in the bathroom had been replaced with a new, unfamiliar set. The curtains, the bedsheets, the duvet cover, all changed to colors and patterns Jessica preferred, erasing the soft blues and grays we'd chosen together. Even the framed photo in the bedroom, a cherished snapshot of Daniel and me as kids, we grew up in the same neighborhood, our childhoods intertwined, had been swapped out for a picture of Jessica, smiling brightly. There was nothing left for me to pack. The small apartment we had decorated together, filled with shared memories and inside jokes, layer by layer built over years, it had been completely purged of my existence. In just 1 week. 7 short days. All my belongings, my entire presence, had been condensed into a single suitcase, shoved unceremoniously into a dusty corner of the balcony, along with the dog cage holding 7. The humid summer night air pressed in, thick and suffocating as I stepped onto the balcony. I crouched amidst the clutter, staring blankly at 7 slumped listlessly in his cage. 7. We found him as a stray puppy on our first official date, huddled and shivering in an alley. Daniel named him 7 because it was March 7th. He'd held me close. That day, grinning wickedly, whispering that every time I called the dog's name, I'd remember the feeling of his first kiss, tentative, then deepening, full of promise. Now, even that memory felt tainted, corrupted. 7, I whispered. His floppy ears twitched, then perked up. Seeing me, he whined excitedly, tail thumping against the cage bars, wanting to jump up and greet me with his usual slobbery enthusiasm. Realizing he was confined, he settled back down, tail still wagging hopefully, his eyes fixed on me. An uncontrollable sting hit the back of my nose. The dam of suppressed emotions, hurt, betrayal, confusion, finally broke. I scrambled up and stormed back into the living room, tears blurring my vision. "You can throw out everything else, I don't care." My voice shook with sudden fury. "But 7. He was abused before we found him. He's terrified of being caged, he panics." "I know." Daniel cut me off coolly, his gaze flickering towards Jessica, who stood watching with a detached curiosity. His voice was flat, devoid of empathy. "She's afraid of dogs." The rest of my sentence died in my throat, unspoken words lodging painfully like stones. "She's afraid of dogs." So that was the reason. Simple, practical. Utterly dismissive of 7's trauma, of our shared history with him. A dull, Heavy ache spread through my chest, slow and deep, settling like sediment. The first inkling that something was wrong, something brewing between Daniel and Jessica, surfaced about 2 months ago. Graduation was looming, and he'd received several impressive job offers, making him incredibly busy, distant. Sometimes, a message I sent at night wouldn't get a reply until the next morning. Phone calls were brief, perfunctory, rushed. "Hey, he's just swamped right now. Don't overthink it," Jessica had reassured me one evening in the dorm, noticing my low spirits. Her words, back then, had seemed like genuine friendly concern. On Valentine's Day, Jessica surprised me with 2 movie tickets. "Found these, thought you might like them," she'd said casually. Hoping to bridge the growing distance between Daniel and me, I invited him. Halfway through the film, his attention wandered, constantly checking his phone, his leg jiggling restlessly. "Serena, I need to take this call. Project deadline stuff." "Be right back," he muttered, grabbing his jacket and slipping out before I could respond. He never came back. After the movie ended, amidst the exiting crowds, I saw him leaning against a wall outside the theater, waiting, head bowed, lost in thought. I noticed, with a small, sharp pang of unease, that the top 2 buttons of his shirt, usually left open casually, were fastened tightly, right up to his collar. Seeing me, he offered only a brief, vague explanation. Project discussion ran late. Lost track of time. What project takes an entire movie's length to discuss? I asked, suspicion gnawing at me, a cold feeling spreading in my stomach. How did he reply then? He didn't even bother with a convincing excuse. Just that indifferent shrug. "If you want to assume the worst, Serena, I can't stop you." Back in the dorm that night, restless and uneasy, I scrolled through my social media feed, seeking distraction. And then I saw it. Jessica's new post. A photo of 2 half-finished, brightly colored milk tea cups and 2 movie ticket stubs, identical to the ones she'd given me. No caption, just a single, bold red heart emoji. The dorm room was silent, save for the sound of our soft breathing. But the air felt thick, heavy, hard to draw into my lungs. "Were you in the screening next to mine?" I asked quietly, my voice barely a whisper. "Yeah," she replied after a moment, not looking up from her book. "Rom-coms aren't really my thing." "Were you with the guy you like?" The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken accusation. A long pause stretched between us. Then, a small, almost secretive smile touched her lips. "Yes." Later, walking across the campus athletic field under the vast, starry sky, I walked ahead, wrapped in a troubled silence. Daniel sensed my mood, catching up, reaching for my hand. "What's wrong?" His touch felt different, less comforting, more like an obligation. I looked at him then, meeting his eyes directly in the dim light. "Jessica was at the same cinema complex tonight." The air between us crackled with sudden tension, freezing for a beat. But only for a moment. He tightened his grip on my hand, his expression shifting to one of earnest reassurance. "Serena, it was just a coincidence." "Really?" Looking into his eyes then, seeing the apparent sincerity, the hint of apology. I let him hold my hand. Foolishly, I let myself believe him. We'd been together so long, built a life, planned a future. We considered each other the inevitable endpoint. Surely, I shouldn't doubt years of history based on mere suspicion, on circumstantial evidence? Besides, Jessica did have that long-term crush. I'd even seen photos of the guy, some indie musician type. She wouldn't go after Daniel, my Daniel. Right? Whether it was my imagination or reality, Daniel grew colder, more distant after that night. Thesis defense deadlines approached, making him even busier, providing a convenient excuse for his unavailability. We went nearly a week without seeing each other properly. Until his birthday. I'd baked his favorite chocolate lava cake, bought a thoughtful gift, a vintage watch he'd admired, and went over to his rented apartment near campus, planning to surprise him. I pushed open the door to find the apartment packed with people, mid-celebration. Music blared, laughter echoed. And there, standing by a store-bought cake blazing with candles, was Daniel. With Jessica practically enveloped in his arms, her hand placed intimately over his on the knife handle, leaning in close, whispering something in his ear, both ready to cut the first slice together. A sudden, awkward silence fell over the room as I stepped inside, the cake box feeling heavy and ridiculous in my hands. Seeing me, Daniel's expression remained blank, unreadable, his hand staying exactly where it was, resting possessively on Jessica's. "Go on," he instructed the group coolly, as if I were merely a minor interruption. It was Jessica who pulled her hand away first, though she didn't move from his side, her gaze meeting mine with a complex mix of guilt and defiance. Someone, one of Daniel's less perceptive friends, quickly jumped in to explain, stumbling over the words. "Oh, hey Serena. Surprise. It's Jessica's birthday today too. Yeah, what a coincidence, right? So, we just thought, they should cut the cake together. Totally innocent. Don't misunderstand." His clumsy explanation did nothing to ease the knot tightening in my chest, the cold dread spreading through my veins. All the recent anxieties, the nagging doubts, the whispered suspicions, seeing them together like that, so casually intimate, solidified everything into painful, undeniable certainty. After the party, guests awkwardly filtered out, leaving a lingering scent of cheap beer and forced merriment, I confronted Daniel. Or rather, I had a one-sided meltdown, the culmination of weeks of suppressed hurt and confusion. "I'm your girlfriend. Why wasn't I invited to your birthday party?" My voice trembled, rising with each word. "Are you really that busy? Busy enough to cut a cake with her, but not busy enough to reply to a single one of my messages in a week?" My voice started cracking then, tears welling up, blurring his impassive face. "Daniel," I finally choked out, the question feeling like the last shred of hope tearing apart. "Do you even want to be with me anymore?" The familiar, heavy silence answered me, more deafening than any shouted denial. I leaned against a chair for support, the room seeming to spin, slowly sinking to the floor, burying my face in my knees, sobbing silently, shoulders shaking. The Daniel who used to tell me everything, who promised to marry me right after graduation, who never let me doubt his feelings for a single moment. He finally had nothing left to say to me. In a surge of pain and wounded pride, I told him it was over. I broke up with him. Hearing the words I never thought I'd say, he simply replied, his voice chillingly devoid of emotion, flat and final, "Suit yourself." 5 days after the breakup, Mark, one of Daniel's closer friends, approached me on campus, clearly designated as the peacemaker. "Hey Serena, look, it really was a surprise party. We just showed up, he didn't know beforehand." He shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes. "Look, he messed up, yeah. But don't you think maybe you were being a bit too clingy while he was so stressed about his thesis? Even couples need their space, you know." His words felt like subtle gaslighting, shifting the blame. Even Jessica offered her own brand of placating denial when I saw her back at the dorm. "Serena, honestly, I have someone I like." I showed you his picture ages ago. "Daniel's your boyfriend. Why would I ever try to steal him?" Her performance of wide-eyed innocence was almost convincing. Their combined words planted insidious seeds of doubt. Had I overreacted? Been too demanding? Too insecure during a stressful time? Maybe I was being unfair, letting my anxieties run wild. Maybe it was all just a series of unfortunate misunderstandings. I decided, against my better judgment, to talk to Daniel one more time, try to sort things out properly, give him the benefit of the doubt I wasn't sure he deserved. And that's when I walked in on them. Kissing. Just 1 week after he'd accepted my breakup with chilling indifference. He'd wasted absolutely no time moving on, accepting Jessica's long-held confession. Seamless. Utterly, devastatingly seamless. I took 7 home with me that night, smuggling him into my parents' place under the guise of a short visit. Since pets weren't allowed in the dorms, he had to stay there temporarily. Curled up in my childhood bed later, sleep was impossible. My mind relentlessly replayed the image of Daniel and Jessica kissing, then spun sickeningly into imagining more intimate scenes, fueled by hurt and betrayal. My scalp prickled with tension, my chest felt tight, constricted. Desperate for an outlet, for some kind of validation, I found an anonymous online forum question about partners who move on instantly after a long-term relationship ends. Under the cloak of anonymity, I poured out all my hurt, confusion, and simmering anger into a lengthy, detailed reply, omitting names but capturing the raw pain of the past few weeks. I woke up the next morning to my phone buzzing uncontrollably, vibrating against the nightstand like an angry insect. Message notifications flooded the screen. 99+. My anonymous post had somehow gone viral overnight. Scrolling through the comments, my breath caught. Why did he agree to the breakup instantly? Huge red flag. Agree with above. No way he moved on that fast. That's not seamless transition, that's giving the side piece an excuse to go public. My blood ran cold as I read further. Somehow, based on my vague descriptions of campus landmarks and perhaps IP location data, commenters had deduced my university, even identified me and Jessica by name. The post had spread like wildfire across internal campus forums and group chats. Jessica Thorne always seemed so sweet and innocent. Didn't peg her for a homewrecker. Yuck. OMG, I know the boyfriend. Daniel Hayes from the math department, right? Super hot, great voice. No wonder Miss Thing managed to snatch him. Wait, did anyone else notice the OP mentioned his shirt buttons being done up tightly after the movies? Trying to hide something much? Cough, hickeys, cough. Reading the flood of comments, a strange mix of vindication and growing unease washed over me. My phone buzzed again, a barrage of missed calls, floods of WeChat messages lighting up the screen. All from Daniel. Numbly, I switched my phone off and went downstairs, needing air, needing food, needing to escape the virtual chaos. As I reached the bottom of the dorm stairs, I saw him, waiting. He spotted me immediately and strode over, his face grim, radiating anger. Delete the post, he ordered coldly, his voice leaving no room for argument. Remembering the online speculation, the comments about hickeys, about when they might have actually started, a bitter question escaped me before I could stop it. When did you two actually get together? Was it that night at the movies? Or even earlier? How long were you lying to me? He stared back, his expression unreadable, a mask of cold indifference firmly in place. Serena, is there any point in discussing this? No. No direct answer. But crucially, no denial either. The unspoken confirmation hit me with the force of a physical blow. Laughter. Sharp and humorless, bubbled up from my chest. Laughter at my own naivety, at his casual cruelty. If you didn't like me anymore, Daniel, you could have just told me. You know I wouldn't have clung to you like some pathetic limpet. Why drag it out? Why lie? I'll say it again, he interrupted, his voice taking on a distinct warning edge, his limited patience clearly wearing thin. Letting this escalate further won't do you any good either. Just delete the post. I looked at him, truly looked at him then, and felt a wave of disorienting strangeness wash over me. Was this really the same Daniel Hayes I had known for years? The quiet, observant boy from my childhood who had defended me. Years ago when Sarah Jenkins, a notorious bully, accused me of stealing her ridiculously expensive butterfly hair clip, she'd planted it in my school bag, then publicly shamed me in front of the whole class, pulling my hair. Sneering, bet you've never owned anything this nice in your life, huh? Stealing a $20 hair clip? How poor is your family, anyway? Everyone believed her, classmates whispered, thief, behind their hands. Only Daniel, usually. So reserved, spoke up, calmly stating he'd seen Sarah slip the clip into my bag herself during recess. That single act of quiet courage had been the unlikely start of our long friendship, eventually blossoming into love. Now, that same protective, quietly courageous boy couldn't even muster the patience to let me finish a single sentence. His protection, his loyalty, was reserved for someone else now. A wave of profound sadness and bitterness washed over me, so intense it almost buckled my knees. I won't delete it, I whispered finally, the words tasting like ash, then turned and fled before the tears could fall, escaping back into the relative anonymity of the dorm building. That evening, heading downstairs to grab some takeout, I felt eyes on me, heard snippets of hushed conversation as I passed groups of students. Look. It's her. Birds of a feather, I guess. Neither of them are any good. Totally desperate for attention, posting all that drama online. A knot of dread formed in my stomach, a premonition of something worse. Back in my room, heart pounding, I forced myself to check the online forum again. And there it was. Someone had posted an anonymous reply directly under my original answer. The title screamed, "The real truth with receipts. Someone was cheating on her loving boyfriend months ago." The post, written with venomous detail, spun a narrative painting me as the villain. It claimed I had been having a secret affair for half a year, and was now projecting my own guilt by maliciously slandering my innocent, heartbroken ex-boyfriend and my supposedly wronged roommate. What made it devastatingly convincing, what made my blood run cold, was the accompanying photo. It showed me, standing outside a hotel entrance late one evening, arm in arm with a tall, well-built young man. His hand rested possessively, intimately, on my waist as he leaned down, looking at me. The lighting was dim, obscuring his features somewhat, but it was undeniably me. And the man beside me, his touch familiar yet forbidden in this context, was definitely not Daniel. Because my original post had already generated so much traffic, this reply, this counter-narrative complete with photographic proof, exploded instantly. Online opinion, fickle and hungry for scandal, flipped on a dime. The vitriol previously directed at Jessica was now aimed squarely at me, amplified tenfold, laced with misogynistic slurs and slut-shaming accusations. Suddenly, amidst the flood of hateful comments, one remark shot to the top, gaining hundreds of likes within minutes. Wait a sec, isn't that guy Julian Vance? From a university next door? The legendary Ice Prince? High-rated replies followed quickly, fueling the fire. No freaking way. Julian Vance is way out of her league. He wouldn't look twice at someone like her. Doesn't Julian Vance have a serious girlfriend? Heard it's the campus belle from the Chinese lit department. TSK, so Serena was the side piece all along. Cheater gets cheated on while cheating herself. What a mess. My hands trembled with a mixture of rage and helplessness. I took several deep breaths, forcing down the panic, then dialed Jessica's number, my knuckles white as I gripped the phone. Did you post that reply? I demanded, my voice shaking slightly. Jessica laughed on the other end, a cold, triumphant sound. What if I did? Her voice dripped with smug malice. You started this whole mess, Serena. I just responded in kind. Before I could unleash the torrent of accusations boiling inside me, I heard her let out a small gasp, followed by the distinct sound of rustling fabric muffled. Voices in the background. Oops, sorry. Still on the phone, she purred into the receiver, her breathing suddenly slightly uneven, deliberately suggestive. Then, Daniel's lazy, indifferent drawl came through clearly, chillingly close to the mouthpiece. Who are you even talking to? Waste of time. The line went quiet for a moment, but not dead. I could hear heavy breathing escalating, a sharp intake of breath, maybe even the faint, unmistakable rasp of a zipper being pulled down. I slammed the phone down, ball rising in my throat, feeling physically ill. My hand holding the phone shook violently, uncontrollably. Taking several deep, ragged breaths, I fumbled with my phone again, opening WeChat, my fingers clumsy. I found the contact, typed out a message, my thumbs trembling. Julian, I am so incredibly sorry you got dragged into this horrible mess. It's not fair to you at all. I promise I'll handle it, get the post taken down. Truly sorry for the trouble. Minutes ticked by, each one stretching into an eternity. Finally, a reply notification popped up. It's okay. 2 simple words, but they brought a small, disproportionate measure of relief. Julian Vance. This was a nightmare for him, completely undeserved. He was my cousin Leo's close friend. 6 months ago, Leo had brought him over to visit while he was in town for a conference. Since my dorm was tiny, I'd helped them book a hotel room nearby. Later that evening, as we were leaving the hotel lobby, I was distracted, head down, replying to an urgent message on my phone, and nearly stepped right into the path of an oncoming car. Julian, reacting instantly, had yanked me back. Just in time, his arm hooking around my waist to steady me. Jessica had been with us that day, tagging along with Leo. She must have sneakily taken the photo in that split second of chaos. The world felt bizarrely, cruelly strange. Even though my cousin Leo, Julian himself, and I all posted clarifications, explaining the context, even providing hotel booking confirmations showing separate rooms booked under their names, the online mob didn't care. Perhaps they didn't want the mundane truth. They craved the drama, the scandal, the narrative of betrayal and comeuppance. They needed a clear winner and loser, heroes and villains. My life was inevitably, significantly affected. Whispers followed me like shadows across campus. People pointed, stared, judged. It was during this time, when I felt most isolated and attacked, that Jessica messaged me again, her tone deceptively reasonable, suggesting we meet face-to-face to talk things over properly. My cousin Leo, knowing my tendency to avoid confrontation, worried I wouldn't be able to handle Jessica and Daniel alone, and insisted on coming with me. I appreciated the offer but refused. This was something I needed to face myself. Jessica chose a public, relatively busy coffee shop, likely for plausible deniability or to prevent a major scene. When I arrived, Punctual to the minute, they were all ready. Seated at a corner table, waiting, looking unnervingly like a settled couple. "Serena's here," Jessica trilled brightly, waving me over with exaggerated enthusiasm. I ignored her performative greeting, walked over, and sat down silently, pointedly looking only at her, deliberately ignoring the cold, assessing gaze I could feel fixed on my face from Daniel across the small table. "What did you want to talk about?" I asked flatly. "Talk?" Jessica covered her mouth, her laughter bubbling up, overly dramatic and false. "Honey, please. You're hardly in a position to negotiate or make demands now, are you?" A bitter, humorless laugh escaped me then. "Jessica, let's cut the crap. The man you'd loved for ages. It was always Daniel, wasn't it? Right from the start. You lied to me the whole time, pretended to be my friend." "Yes," she admitted readily, almost proudly, dropping the pretense. "I fell for him the moment I saw him freshman year." My hands clenched into fists under the table, nails digging into my palms. "That day at the cinema, he didn't go to your screening, did he? He came to find you." "Nope," she confirmed casually. A cold dread, a sickening certainty, washed over me. I almost didn't want to know, but I had to ask. "Where did you go?" "We went to the," she enunciated each syllable slowly, deliberately, savoring the cruelty, restrom, together. "Enough," I snapped, cutting her off before she could spew more vile details. Even though I'd suspected, hearing it confirmed, stated so baldly, felt like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. "Look," Jessica continued, her tone shifting slightly, though still devoid of any genuine remorse, about that. "I am truly sorry. I can delete that reply about you and Julian Vance. Take it down completely." She paused, leaning forward slightly, her eyes narrowed. "But you," she stressed the word, "have to delete your original post about the seamless transition. And you need to issue a public apology. Online. To me." "Impossible." The word burst out, fueled by a surge of righteous rage and disbelief. "How dare she?" Jessica calmly, deliberately, placed a thick stack of photographs face down onto the table between us. Printed photos. My blood ran cold. "Deleting your post isn't optional, Serena," she said softly, her voice laced with menace. "Neither is the public apology to M." My remaining words of refusal choked in my throat as she slowly flipped over the top photograph. I stared, unseeing at first, then the image registered. My breath hitched. Horror, cold and paralyzing, washed over me. How did you get these?" I whispered, my voice trembling, barely audible. "How could you possibly know about?" I couldn't look away from the horrifying images spread across the table. My mind fractured, flashing back, unwillingly, to that dark alleyway years ago. After Daniel defended me against Sarah Jenkins, the bully who'd accused me of stealing her stupid butterfly hair clip, Sarah targeted him relentlessly. Her older brother, Kevin, a known thug from a rival school, made Daniel's life hell. Daniel started showing up with bruises he tried to hide under long sleeves, pulling his mask up high even when it wasn't required. He'd shrug off my worried questions, letting me apply ointment to his split lips and darkening bruises in silence, clumsily comforting me when I cried seeing his injuries. "I'm fine, Serena, really. Don't cry. Doesn't hurt at all," he'd lie, wincing despite himself. Then one day, cutting through an alleyway after school, I saw them. Kevin and his cronies had Daniel cornered, Kevin grinding Daniel's fingers under the heel of his heavy boot. Laughing, I ran screaming, pulling Kevin off, desperately bluffing that campus security was right around the corner. Kevin just laughed harder, grabbing my chin, assessing me with cold, predatory eyes. "Security? They won't get here in time, little girl. But maybe you take some pictures for me, Be cooperative, and maybe I'll let your boyfriend here go." In one piece. I fought, screamed, pleaded, kicked. It was useless. He was too strong. Tears streamed down my face. Daniel was slumped against the wall nearby, barely conscious. Later, somehow, I never knew how, Daniel managed to get the photos back, destroy the negatives. He held me tight that night, his whole body trembling, eyes red-rimmed, voice choked with emotion. "I'll never let anyone hurt you again, Serena. I swear. Never again. If you persist in refusing to delete the post and apologize publicly to me," Jessica's voice, sharp and cold, pulled me violently back to the present, away from the suffocating grip of the memory, "well, I just Can't guarantee that these little snapshots won't find their way online. Her eyes glinted with malicious satisfaction. Imagine what your parents would think? Imagine what the internet would make of these. But how? How did Jessica get them? How could she possibly know about that specific, buried trauma? How did I find out? Jessica echoed my unspoken, horrified question, her voice dangerously soft, each word a deliberate, poisoned needle prick driving deeper into my already wounded heart. Come on, Serena. You're not stupid. You've already guessed, haven't you? My head snapped up, my gaze locking onto Daniel across the table. He flinched, unable to meet my eyes, staring down at his tightly clenched fists. I felt completely numb, frozen in my chair, the world narrowing to the horrifying photos spread across the table and the unbearable implications. Why? I whispered again, the sound ragged, torn from my throat. You promised. You swore you'd protect me. Daniel's face turned deathly pale, a ghastly white under the cafe's fluorescent lights. He lunged across the table, grabbing Jessica's wrist, his voice tight with a fury I hadn't heard before. We agreed she just had to delete the post. That was the deal. Why the hell did you bring these photos out? She said she wouldn't delete it. Didn't you hear her? Jessica tried to wrench her arm free, looking at him with genuine disbelief, perhaps even fear. Daniel, are you fucking crazy? You were the one who told me about this whole sordid story in the first place. Don't tell me you're actually starting to feel sorry for her now. Daniel froze, caught, exposed. After a long, agonizing moment, he turned his head slowly towards me, his throat working, struggling to form words. Serena, believe me. I didn't know she would, I never intended. With a strangled cry of rage and betrayal, I snatched my heavy ceramic coffee cup from the table and hurled it directly at his face with all my strength. Crash. It struck his forehead with a sickening thud. Dark, viscous coffee mixed instantly with bright red blood, streaming down his face, obscuring one eye. He didn't even flinch, didn't react to the pain. Just stared at me, his expression utterly stunned, uncomprehending. In the reflection of his shocked, blood-streaked eyes, I saw my own face, contorted with a hatred so profound it terrified me. Daniel Hayes, my voice shook with loathing, dangerously quiet now, you make me physically sick. That memory, the photos, it was a nightmare I fought constantly to suppress. For years afterwards, seeing anything even remotely resembling a butterfly, a pattern, a piece of jewelry, an actual butterfly fluttering past, triggered a physical tremor, a cold wave of nausea. Now, this ultimate betrayal forced me to confront a horrifying possibility. Maybe Daniel had never truly loved me at all. How else could he share something so deeply traumatic, so violating, as casual pillow talk, as gossip fodder, with his new lover? The commotion, the crash, my outburst, Daniel bleeding, finally attracted attention from nearby tables. People started whispering, pointing. She looks familiar. Isn't that Serena? The one from the online posts? The cheater who got cheated on. Yeah, I saw that hotel photo too. Guess she deserved it. A few people, emboldened, raised their phones, aiming them at me, ready to capture the next installment of the drama. What are you looking at? Daniel roared suddenly, startling them into lowering their phones and quickly looking away or scurrying off. I won't delete the post, I stated again, my voice surprisingly steady now, fueled by a cold, hard anger. And I will never apologize to either of you. Jessica stared at me, incredulous. Aren't you afraid? I flipped my phone over on the table, revealing the screen, recording in progress. I saved the audio file, then clutched the phone tightly. In my hand, my lifeline. You can leak those photos right now if you want, I said calmly, meeting her shocked gaze head-on. Go ahead. Spread them everywhere. My voice gained strength. But the moment you do, it becomes a criminal act. Distribution of private, non-consensual images, blackmail, coercion. I will go to the police. And I will give them this entire recording detailing your threats. Jessica's face turned white as parchment. After a long moment, she managed to spit out, her voice trembling slightly. You're really not afraid of people seeing those photos? I hesitated, then took a deep breath. Back then, I admitted quietly, my voice low but clear, I was young. Terrified. I kept quiet. Because I didn't want my family to worry, didn't want the gossip, the whispers, the pitying looks. I straightened my shoulders, finding a strength I didn't know I possessed until this very moment. But thinking about it now, what do I actually have to be afraid of? My voice gained conviction, ringing with newfound clarity. Being falsely accused of stealing wasn't my fault. Being assaulted and photographed against my will wasn't my fault. Even being too scared and ashamed to report it back then, that wasn't my fault either. My gaze hardened as I looked directly at them both, my voice sharp. The fault lies entirely with the bullies, the perpetrators. With the bystanders who said nothing, who let it happen. And my eyes locked onto Jessica, then shifted to Daniel. The fault lies with you, for using my trauma, my vulnerability, as a weapon to threaten and control me now. Jessica looked genuinely frightened now, her earlier smugness completely gone. Of course, I added coolly, pressing my advantage, your attempt to blackmail me using these photos is also illegal. With this recording as evidence, I could report you both to the police right now. I let the implication hang heavily in the air. Graduation is just around the corner. You wouldn't want to be expelled for criminal activity, would you? Tarnishing your futures before they even begin. Jessica glared at me, trapped. What do you want? She finally ground out between clenched teeth. I didn't hesitate. My demands were clear, concise. First, give me back every single copy of those photos. Physical prints, digital files, everything. Now. Second, delete the false reply about me and Julian Vance. Immediately. Third, post a public clarification explaining the truth, that the photo was innocent, taken out of context and used maliciously, and issue a formal, public apology. To me and to Julian Vance. Before Jessica could even sputter a response, Daniel spoke quickly, his voice strained, defeated. Okay. His lips were white, his eyes filled with a turbulent maelstrom of emotions, guilt, shame, regret. I'm sorry, Serena. Truly. For the next half hour, I sat in silence, watching numbly as Jessica, under Daniel's tense supervision, deleted the offending online post with trembling fingers. Then, biting her lip, she typed out a new one, a carefully worded retraction and apology, admitting she'd acted out of jealousy and misrepresented the situation. As predicted, the new post immediately gained traction online. Knew there had to be more to the story. Always trust your gut. Wow, the other woman, admitting she lied and manipulated things? That takes guts, or desperation. Damn, feel really bad for Serena now. What a horrible ordeal. I carefully gathered the physical photos from the table, my hands steady now. Is this all of them? I asked quietly, looking at Daniel. Yes. All of them, he answered hoarsely, his gaze fixed on the tabletop. Serena, you don't have to be so guarded with me. I wouldn't. He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence, perhaps realizing the hollowness of his words. I ignored him, carefully placing the photos, remnants of a buried nightmare, into my bag, zipping it shut decisively. Then, without another word, I stood up and walked out of the coffee shop, leaving them both sitting there amidst the wreckage they had created. Behind me, I thought I heard Daniel call my name again, his voice choked, but I didn't stop, didn't look back. Outside, blinking in the sudden sunlight, I took a deep breath of fresh air, feeling strangely light, almost free. I pulled out my phone and called my cousin Leo, assuring him everything was resolved, carefully omitting the traumatic details about the photos. After hanging up, I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, letting the city noise wash over me, simply processing. Just as I was about to hail a cab, a familiar figure emerged from the cafe, almost bumping into me. Julian Vance. Our eyes met. He seemed surprised to see me still there, then a flicker of concern crossed his handsome features. He gave a small, polite nod. Serena. We found a quiet park bench nearby, away from the main bustle. I noticed he ordered several different kinds of cake and pastries when the waiter from a nearby kiosk came by. You saw all of that back there? I asked quietly, stirring my iced tea. Julian seemed to choose his words carefully before nodding. I was sitting at the table right in front of yours. Hard to miss. A heavy silence fell between us. You handled yourself incredibly well, he said finally, his voice gentle, sincere. If you hadn't thought to record them, I suspect things wouldn't have resolved so smoothly. He paused. And they almost certainly didn't expect you to. I managed a faint, weary smile, saying nothing. Julian offered a small smile in return. Your cousin Leo mentioned you could be quite soft-hearted, easily pushed around, he admitted, a hint of amusement in his eyes. He asked me To check in on you if I was in the area, make sure you were okay after all the online drama. Clearly, he gestured vaguely back towards the cafe. You didn't need my intervention. The waiter arrived with a tempting array of sweets. I picked up a fork, poking listlessly at a delicate mango milk crepe cake. If I'd had even a tenth of the courage back then that I found today, I murmured, mostly to myself, maybe I wouldn't have let those people bully me like that in the first place. That's not the right way to frame it, Serena, Julian countered softly but firmly, his gaze serious, kind. If the aggressors back then had managed to curb even a tenth of their own malice, they wouldn't have bullied anyone. He held my gaze steadily. And if the bystanders hadn't chosen silence, perhaps the victim wouldn't have suffered such profound secondary harm. He paused, letting the words sink in. That's the correct perspective, wouldn't you agree? I stared at him, startled by his insight, his gentle reframing of the narrative. Controlling oneself, he continued quietly, that responsibility should always fall on the perpetrator, shouldn't it? Not the victim. Something warm bloomed in my chest, easing a tightness I hadn't realized I'd been carrying for years. My eyes stung unexpectedly. Thank you, I whispered, the words catching in my throat. We walked in comfortable silence after paying the bill, the earlier tension dissipating. Trying to break the quiet, to return to some semblance of normalcy, I asked lightly, so, the campus. Rumor mill says your girlfriend is the reigning queen of the Chinese lit department? After all the drama involving your name these past few days, you should probably go reassure her. He stopped walking, looking at me intently for a moment, a strange expression crossing his face. Then, suddenly, a slow, genuine smile spread across his lips. I tilted my head, confused by his amusement. Before I could ask, a car suddenly swerved recklessly around the corner. Horn blaring. An arm shot out, strong and sure, pulling me back sharply against a firm chest, out of harm's way. Julian's tweed jacket brushed against my ear. Then his voice, clear and close, right beside my ear. The rumors are false, Serena. I don't have a girlfriend. That night, back in my dorm, Daniel sent one last, desperate WeChat message before I blocked him completely on all platforms. I saw you outside walking with Julian Vance. You were standing very close. Irrelevant. Utterly irrelevant. Even if something was happening, or might happen, with Julian, Daniel no longer possessed any right whatsoever to question my actions or my proximity to anyone else. The following weeks were a frantic blur of final exams, thesis revisions, library marathons, and graduation preparations. I buried myself in work, shuttling between the sterile quiet of the library and the chaotic energy of the dorm, sometimes forgetting to eat, fueled solely by caffeine and adrenaline. Daniel, conversely, seemed to suddenly possess an abundance of free time. I'd see him lingering outside my dorm building almost every evening when I dragged myself back from the library exhausted. He wouldn't approach, wouldn't speak. Just stand there, watching me with that same haunted, unreadable expression, then turn and walk away into the dusk. As if simply confirming my continued existence, my proximity, was enough for him. I ignored him completely, dismissing his silent vigils as some form of belated, pathetic, guilt-ridden penance. It meant nothing to me now. On graduation photo day, standing amongst my classmates in our gowns, I noticed Jessica Thorne was conspicuously absent. Overhearing snippets of hushed gossip later, I learned why. Did you hear? Jessica Thorne's in the hospital, critical condition. Apparently won't recover full mobility. Yeah, someone posted in the alumni group chat. Turns out that girl she bullied relentlessly back in middle school, Sarah Jenkins, is now permanently paralyzed because of the long-term effects. Sarah's grandfather found out, went after Jessica just outside her apartment building the other day. Stabbed her multiple times. They said the grandfather has terminal cancer, knew he had nothing left to lose. Just wanted revenge for his granddaughter. Before he died. Turned himself in right after. Wow! Heavy. Talk about karma finally catching up. The news sent a complex chill through me, a strange mixture of shock, grim satisfaction, and a weary sadness for the cycle of violence. My train ticket home was booked for the next day. Lying in bed that night, scrolling absently through social media, a message popped up from my cousin Leo. Hey cuz, last-minute camping trip tomorrow before you leave town? Pack your bags. Someone special might be joining us, winky face. I knew exactly who his unsubtle hint referred to. Julian. After a moment's thought, considering the fragile, undefined space Julian and I currently occupied, I politely declined. Sorry, Leo, already have plans for tomorrow. Packing and goodbyes. Leo replied instantly. Don't tell me you've sworn off love forever just 'cause of that scumbag ex-Daniel. Don't let him win. Me, haha no. Just honestly? Not really looking for a relationship right now. Need some time. Just as I thought the conversation was over, swinging my legs out of bed to pour myself a glass of water, another message arrived. From Leo, lighting up my screen. FYI, Julian Vance is downstairs outside your dorm building right now. Standing in the rain. I nearly choked on my water. Glancing out the window, sure enough, a steady drizzle was falling, punctuated by distant rumbles of thunder. And standing just beyond the hazy glow of the entrance lights was a tall, familiar figure. Without thinking, propelled by an instinct I didn't stop to analyze, I grabbed an umbrella and rushed downstairs. Halfway down the main corridor, nearing the front entrance, my phone buzzed again. A smug-faced emoji. From Leo, huh. Said you weren't interested. Knew it. Bet you're already downstairs practically throwing that umbrella at him, aren't you? Admit it. Realizing I'd been expertly played, again, I rolled my eyes, utterly exasperated by his matchmaking antics. I'd come down for you too if you were standing out there getting soaked, you idiot. It's called basic human decency. Leo replied with a string of crying emojis. What do you mean even if it were me? Sis, have you forsaken me? Don't you love your favorite cousin anymore, sad face? Ignoring his dramatics, deciding this was all too complicated, I turned to go back upstairs to my room, away from the rain and the unexpected visitor. But just as I turned, a familiar voice stopped me, cutting through the sound of the downpour. Serena. Daniel stood drenched just beyond the entryway overhang, rainwater plastering his dark hair to his forehead, streaming down his pale face. Like tears. His dark eyes, usually so sharp and controlled, looked hollow, haunted, as they watched me silently through the curtain of rain. What are you doing here? My voice was flat, devoid of curiosity, devoid of welcome. I don't know, he answered honestly, his voice rough, self-mocking. I honestly don't know what I'm doing anymore. My face remained impassive. I heard your girlfriend was seriously injured. Might not even wake up fully. Shouldn't you be at the hospital with her? Jessica and I broke up, he stated flatly, his gaze fixed on me intently, searching desperately for some reaction, some flicker of emotion. A humorless, bitter laugh escaped me then. It echoed slightly in the cavernous entryway. Let me guess, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm, heavy with accumulated weariness. You suddenly realized it was all a terrible mistake? A momentary lapse in judgment? A fleeting infatuation? And that I'm the one you truly love after all? I shook my head, the disgust rising like bile in my throat. Daniel, don't you just nauseate yourself sometimes? His jaw tightened, his expression unreadable, a chaotic mix of shame, pain, and desperation churning beneath the surface. Serena, he pleaded, taking a step towards me, into the relative dryness of the entrance. Listen to me, please. Listen to what? I cut him off sharply, the anger I thought I'd buried surging back, hot and fierce. Listen to how you methodically cheated on me with Jessica behind my back while pretending everything was fine. Listen to how you waited patiently in the cinema restroom for her that Valentine's night while I sat there alone like an idiot, making excuses for you. Listen to how you emotionally abandoned me, using cold silences and passive aggression to force me into being the one to finally end things. His face turned deathly pale, lips moving, but no sound came out. He looked utterly broken. See, my voice trembled, finally cracking with the weight of years of suppressed hurt and fury. You knew all those things would destroy me, would break my trust completely. And you did them anyway. I fought for control, forcing the words out through gritted teeth, the hatred simmering, threatening to boil over. I only have one question left for you, Daniel. Just one. Why? Why did you tell Jessica about what happened back then? About the photos? Why would you share that? A long, heavy silence stretched between us again, filled only by the relentless drumming of the rain on the pavement outside. Finally, his voice came. Hoarse and ragged, barely a whisper. After that incident happened. I felt so much guilt, so much shame, and this overwhelming need to protect you. I told myself, just pretend it never happened. Bury it. I'll just protect you better from now on. He took a shaky breath. But later, I realized. I couldn't forget it. It haunted me. I hated myself for not being there, for not stopping it, for letting you get hurt. His eyes, bloodshot and raw, finally met mine. Rain or tears, or maybe both, tracked paths down his gaunt cheeks. Every time I touched you afterwards. Every time I saw you flinch, even slightly, saw you trying so hard to accept me, to move past it, despite the fear I knew you still carried. I would remember. I would imagine their hands, touching your body the way mine were. His voice broke. The guilt, it was unbearable. And he looked away, shame washing over him again. There was jealousy. Twisted, irrational jealousy of something that had only caused you pain. When Jessica came along, I pushed you away. Deliberately. Let myself get closer to her. His confession tumbled out now, ragged and desperate. I kept thinking, maybe if I tried with someone else, maybe I could finally forget you. Forget that unbearable memory. He looked back at me, pleading. 6 months ago, Jessica confessed her feelings, showed me that photo of you and Julian outside the hotel. His voice dropped lower. I let myself believe it. Or maybe I forced myself to believe it. That you had betrayed me first. It gave me an excuse. That night, I got very drunk, told her about the incident, told her everything. His voice finally cracked completely, dissolving into choked sobs. Serena, I regret it. God, I regret it so much. He actually sank to his knees on the wet pavement at my feet, head bowed. Forgive me, he choked out between sobs. Please? A profound, aching sadness washed over me, sharp and piercing. Not pity, not empathy, not even anger anymore. Just a vast, desolate sense of tragedy. In that moment, I finally understood. He had never loved me, not in the way I needed, not in the way I deserved. He hadn't truly loved Jessica either. Daniel Hayes loved only himself, his pride, his pain, his guilt. His obsession with the past trauma wasn't about my healing. It was about his failure, his tarnished self-image. His infidelity wasn't born of passion for Jessica. It was a desperate, cowardly attempt to escape his own demons. He never communicated, never trusted me enough to share his struggle. He just let the guilt fester, twisting inside him, poisoning everything beautiful we once had. He was no longer the sincere, slightly awkward, fiercely protective boy who blushed when I looked at him. I still felt a strange, detached flicker of gratitude for the boy who defended me against Sarah Jenkins all those years ago. The boy who stood up when no one else would. But if I could rewind time, knowing everything I knew now, I'd wish he'd stayed silent that day. Our connection, perhaps, was flawed, doomed from the very beginning. Finally, I turned my face away, unable to look at the pathetic, broken figure kneeling in the rain before me any longer. My voice, when I spoke, was cold, clear, and absolute, each word a carefully placed stone, sealing his fate in my life. If you want my forgiveness, Daniel, you'll get it when you're dead. I took a steadying breath. Don't ever come near me again. I never want to see your face as long as I live. Epilogue. True to his word, Daniel Hayes never appeared in my life again. After graduation, I found a fulfilling job in my field, pouring my energy into building a career I was proud of. Julian and my cousin Leo ended up working in the same city, and the three of us formed a small, supportive circle, our friendship deepening over shared weekends and late-night talks. A little over a year ago, Julian's company sent him overseas to lead a major international project, a fantastic opportunity, but requiring a year-long commitment. Abroad, standing in the noisy, chaotic airport terminal, watching his familiar figure walk towards the departure gate, I felt an unexpected, sharp pang of wistfulness, a sense of something potentially lost. My cousin Leo sighed dramatically beside me, ever the unsubtle matchmaker. Seriously, you two. Single. Compatible, clearly into each other. Why couldn't you just give it a proper shot? Now look, Captain Dreamy is flying off into the sunset without you. I just gave him a wry look, saying nothing. He didn't know that Julian and I had tried, tentatively exploring something more than friendship for about 2 quiet months while Leo himself was away on an extended business trip to Beijing. It had started simply. One night, struck down by a sudden, vicious bout of acute gastroenteritis, delirious with fever and feeling utterly alone, I'd called Julian, the only person I could think of nearby. I woke up hours later in a hospital bed, for drip in my arm, with Julian asleep, cramped uncomfortably in the hard plastic visitor's chair beside me, having apparently stayed the entire night. During my recovery, he was incredibly attentive, driving me home from work each day, cooking simple, nourishing meals, falling into an easy, comfortable domesticity. It evolved naturally, quietly, without grand pronouncements, into something more. Then, shortly after we started seeing each other exclusively, I inadvertently learned about the impending year-long overseas assignment. After days of anxious deliberation, wrestling with my own fears and past hurts, I ended things. That night, lying tangled together after dinner, Julian's hand tracing patterns on my back, his touch sending familiar sparks through me, he paused, sensing my withdrawal. He looked down at me, his voice soft, questioning what's wrong. I'd turned my face away into the pillow, trying to keep my voice steady. Julian, I don't think I can do long distance. Especially not international. The ghost of Daniel's betrayal loomed large. After years of insecurity and broken trust, the thought of navigating that kind of uncertainty again, across continents and time zones, felt overwhelming, terrifying. He could change his mind. I could change mine. Why invest my already bruised heart, only to potentially face the same devastating outcome? It's better, I'd whispered, the words tasting like cowardice, to cut our losses now, before things get too serious. Julian had gently turned my face back towards him, his gaze searching mine, his expression serious. What if I said, he murmured, leaning closer, his voice husky, that I wouldn't go? Despite the tremor running through me, the undeniable pull towards him, I'd gently shaken my head. Julian, it's an amazing opportunity for your career. Don't give it up for anyone. Especially not for me. My voice gained a fragile strength. I don't need you to sacrifice your future to make me feel secure. That wouldn't be fair to either of us. He was silent for a long, tense moment, his eyes holding mine. Then he finally whispered, so quietly I almost didn't hear it, okay. He rarely showed strong emotion, but his intensity that night, the almost desperate way he held me afterwards, spoke volumes of his disappointment, his unspoken feelings. After Julian left for his assignment, my life continued, steady and calm, focused on work, friends, and finally healing properly. Over the new year holiday back home, visiting relatives, I heard news of Daniel again, relayed by my mother with hesitant sympathy. He went to teach in a remote mountain village after graduation, she'd said. Apparently, there was a terrible mudslide in the region a few months back. He got caught in it. Hit by falling debris, badly injured his legs. Someone found him, managed to get him back here for treatment. They say he might not walk properly again. She paused, then asked tentatively, his mother called, said he's been asking about you. Do you want to see him? I felt a flicker of something, perhaps pity, perhaps just a distant echo of past affection, but my resolve remained firm. No, Mom. I don't. Whether my mother relayed the message or not, I never knew. But for the entire 10 days of the holiday, though Daniel and I were living just streets apart in our small hometown, our paths never crossed. Not once. Not in the following years either. He remained a ghost from a past life. Half a year later, my cousin Leo got married in a whirlwind romance. At the reception, during the traditional bouquet toss, I had just ended a video call with Julian. Strangely, despite the breakup, despite the distance, we'd never completely lost touch. We fell into an easy pattern of occasional messages, sharing funny anecdotes from his travels, him remembering my time zone to wish me goodnight, sending thoughtful gifts for holidays, even offering insightful advice on work problems. It felt comfortably platonic. Mostly like before, but somehow different. Lost in thought, slightly dazed from the call, something soft landed squarely in my hands. Looking down, surprised, I saw it was the bride's bouquet. A wave of laughter and teasing erupted from the surrounding guests. Then, through the cheerful noise, I heard a familiar, deep voice say my name, right behind me. Serena. My head snapped up. I checked my phone. The call had disconnected. All around me, the crowd started cheering, whistling, Leo hooting the loudest. A slow, dawning realization hit me. I looked up, towards the entrance of the reception hall. And there he was, Julian Vance. standing amidst the laughing, celebrating crowd, hands tucked casually into the pockets of his elegant trench coat, watching me with that same quiet, intense gaze I remembered so well. After all this time, the way he looked at me hadn't changed. As he started walking slowly towards me through the throng, a surreal sense of disbelief washed over me. Isn't it supposed to be a year? I managed, my voice barely a whisper as he reached me. Finished the project ahead of schedule, he replied, a small, almost shy smile touching his lips. Then, without any warning, he stepped closer, pulling me naturally into his arms, resting his chin lightly on my shoulder. Serena, he murmured, his voice warm against my ear, I missed you. Terribly. Feeling the solid warmth of his chest against mine, breathing in the familiar, comforting scent of him, something clicked deep inside me. A profound realization bloomed in my heart. Time and distance? They weren't the real obstacles. Commitment, certainty, genuine affection, those were the things that mattered. If someone truly loves you, truly wants to be with you, they find a way. They make time. They overcome obstacles. If you are truly important to them, both they and time itself will ultimately be on your side. Not long after that, I got married too. As Julian slid the ring onto my finger, I glanced out at the cheering guests. My cousin Leo was clapping so hard his palms were probably raw. The end.